Hi everybody, my name is John and this is JWH Mix. So it's February and what holiday do we have in February but Valentine's Day? Love it or hate it, it is going to come around every year. Now I personally do like Valentine's Day. I'm a bit of a romantic. I don't think he would probably say I would, but I am. I like the whole idea of little sweet nothings and little love notes, and you know, you just like, good morning, I didn't want to wake you up, lots of love, kiss, kiss, kiss. Who doesn't love a love note on a morning? Now, that got me thinking, I was like, do I really want to do something romantic? Not really, no. What we've done today is made a very anti-Valentine's, and it may look sugary, it may look sweet, but it's more based on Barbie, Malibu Barbie goes to the polo, she's there with her boyfriend, she's about to marry him, but she's only marrying him for money. That's it. Everybody knows apart from him, and this hat kind of encapsulates that. This is what she would wear, she would think she would better than everybody else because it's glitz, it's glam, it's over the top, and it's very her. And this is the piece. Now, it's a very oversized piece, perfect for something like the polo, sit in the tent, sun's beating down on you, it'll shade the face, very Barbie, the colours, the glitz, the glam, I mean look at that, that's just beautiful, isn't it? And you may remember we used this in our very first video, we used the black version, and this is the multicoloured version of that piece. Now, look, does it not scream Barbie to you? Don't know what Barbie has got to do with Valentine's, but that's the way my brain works. So if you want to see how we made this, keep watching. So for this Valentine's creation, you're going to need the following: 2 meters of rose pink cinema, 2 meters of cerise pink cinema, 1 sheet of the chunky glitter fabric, A4 size in multicoloured glitter, 1 meter of pink grosgrain ribbon, 1 meter of complementary ribbon for the outside of the crown, 2 meters of sprung millinery wire, and 2 ferrules. You're also going to need the following blocks. Both of mine are from Guy Moss Brown and the codes are MBB and MB2. All the links will be provided in the description box below. So to start, we're going to cut some bias strips of the cinema. So we're going to use the rose pink cinema to start with, and we're going to cut them around 5 inches wide. Now if you want to see a tutorial on bias strips and bias cinema strips, check out the link above. It should be at the top right hand side of this video. If you can't see it, it'll also be in the description box below. Using the pillbox style block, start to block the bias strips around the sides of the block. Make sure you cover the block though before you start to protect the block from any moisture, and what this will do, this will damage the block, so you try to avoid as much moisture getting to the block as possible. As you're wrapping the strips around, pull gently to achieve a nice smooth finish, but if you pull too tight you may struggle to get the piece off the block. Once you've done that, smooth the top and the bottom over the edge of the block and pin and steam into place. Now you will have to move pins, it does take time, but it is worth spending your time doing this to get a nice finish. Once you've done, coat the cinema with a liberal supply of millimetre stiffener and set this aside to dry. Take the glittery fabric and trace around on the underside. We're using chalk or a carbon style paper, and set this aside for later. The block I used here was the MB2. This is the tip part of the MBB and they do connect together. It's all on Guy Moss Brown, so you can always check them out, and I find this is easy to use to make the tips for a pillbox. Using the same tip piece, cover with cling film and block some more rose pink cinema over this. You only need a tip of around 1 centimetre tall, and like always, pin and steam into place, and once you're happy with your finish, stiffen and set aside to dry. Whilst they're drying, cut enough cinema strips, and I did around 3, around 8 inches wide. They will tend to be about half a metre long if you're using the full length of cinema, and so that will give you about 1.5 metres in total. It's always handy to have too much than not enough because it's harder to attach later. Sew them together to achieve that nice continuous cinema strip and fold into a bias strip like before. These we're going to use for the edge of the brim, and we'll put these aside for later. Now you can see how I'm doing it. What I tend to do is once I've sewn them together, I put that seam allowance, flatten that seam allowance down, give it a good steam before I even try and turn these into a cinema strip. So do that first, then turn it into a cinema strip. Once all the cinema is dried, remove from the blocks and cut away any excess cinema that you don't need. Now on the tip of the crown, you are going to need about a 1 centimetre excess on either side, excess or seam allowance, I always say excess. With the crown, you're going to have to wire the bottom using 1/2 metre of the sprung wire and a ferrule to hold that into place. Cut the glittery fabric out with a sharp pair of scissors, giving it a 1 centimetre seam allowance, and stitch this to the rose pink tip. I would use a very strong thread and a wide but sharp needle just to make it easier, because this fabric can fray the thread, and as you're going it'll snap and you're like, oh my god, I've start again. So little tip for you there, use a strong thread and a wide but sharp needle. Attach the tip to the crown. Now this is quite fiddly, so do take your time, and it does need a lot of patience. And we have covered this again in another video, so I will link that below, and it's also linked at the top here, at the top right. That's got a full in-depth tutorial on how to do this. In fact, this whole piece is exactly the same, just with a brim. So that tutorial there, it was our very first one, that will show you how to do this piece fully. So to make the brim, first of all you're going to lay out your cerise cinema, making sure you've got the 2 layers one on top of each other, and place the pillbox block in a centre and draw around it using a chalk or a pencil. Then what you need to do is you need to measure out from the block around 20 centimetres around the pillbox in all directions and mark with a chalk or a pencil, and then using a free hand connect all the marks to give a smooth curve. And what I would do at this point is add a few pins where the lines are to stop the cinema from moving around. Now you need to cut away the inside of the brim, so the piece that where your head's going to go, leaving enough cinema to give you a seam allowance of around 1-2 centimetres. Make sure you remove your pins though as you go from the inside, and add the crown onto the top, so pull them pieces in and put the crown on top, turn over and pin the cinema together, and then stitch together using some small stitches to give support. Now this is going to take time, but it is wise, because if you are a bit lazy with your stitching, then they're just going to pull apart, because you know it is a bigger brim than usual. Once it's all stitched together, turn back over and place a clean piece of calico or even a clean tea towel and steam the cerise cinema flat. This will do 2 things. So this will stick the 2 layers together, and it will make sure that you get a nice flat finish. Leave that to dry for a second or 2, and then cut the brim to size using them lines that you drew earlier, making sure you remove your pins again as you go. So attach your spring wire to the edge of your brim. You can do this 2 ways. You can either hand stitch using a blanket stitch, or you could use a machine and use a very wide zigzag stitch. Now don't make it too wide, but remember the bias cinema strips that we're going to be putting on are quite wide anyway, so don't worry too much about that. And when you get to the end, make sure you join the 2 ends of the wire together with a ferrule using a pair of pliers just to nip that together so it doesn't come apart. Taking the 2-inch bias strip that we put aside earlier, steam and pin this around the edge of the brim where we've just placed the millinery wire. Now, you do have to be careful. There is a lot, and using steam, it may get distorted, so do keep your eye out, making sure that you get a nice finish. It's the same width all the way around. If you find there's a piece that hasn't or has moved, just pop a little bit of steam on, pull it apart, pull it together, and just manipulate that to make sure that you get that nice finish along the edge of the hat, because this is what people are going to see. This is one of the features of the hat, and this is, you want it to look good. And then finally, add a grosgrain ribbon to the inside of the crown, and then add a complementary nice ribbon to the outside. Now, this ribbon was some extra from my Christmas wrap stash, and I think it works perfectly. The gold glittery bit matches the top, and the ribbon itself matches the hat, so this was perfect. Dig around in your stash, see what you've got, and make this piece your own. Now, some of you are probably thinking, that brim was a lot bigger in the video than he said. He said 20 centimetres, and that looked a little bit bigger. Well, in fact, initially it was about 30 centimetres either side, which had a massive brim. I put it on the mannequin and I was like, oh no, this just isn't right. So what we did is we trimmed it down. We turned it into a 20 centimetre brim, which looks a lot better. It still gives the look we were looking for, but it's got a lot more stability to it. But what did we do with the excess? Well, this. It was already there. It was already wired, it wasn't already trimmed, we added that on afterwards, but it was already there. So it goes to show, you should never really throw what you cut off. So thank you very much for watching. Make sure you follow me on all my social media. They'll all be linked in the video at the end of this and in the description box below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!